Hey, welcome to the Rant channel. So this is yet another one of the videos where I little bit rant about something. So this video I thought of shooting for quite a while, and I was busy with certain things. So this is something I see often with my students, and as well as whenever I get some mails about some clarification and stuff. And of course, as you guys know, I don't enable this YouTube comment, so I do get some questions and stuff I discuss in the emails. Sometimes I do get from, of course, my students. I discuss when I have sessions, and sometimes I discuss with any anonymous viewer. So this is one thing I see. There is a lot of confusion with people across, especially developers in India. Okay, so when I compare, anytime I get some correspondence like that from abroad, they are very clear about it. And one issue with that, we Indians is we do graduation, and even after graduation we don't know still anything about software development, and we have some vague confusion here and there. And again, we do some childish C programs, what has been taught in the college, thinking that they are very great and something like that. And one among them is the question about memory itself. Okay, so this is not something I find an issue with many mails when I correspond with abroad viewers and as well as my abroad students. Let it be US, UK, or let it be even Brazil, Mexico, or anywhere. Okay, they are very clear about it. So this is a video for Indians who have this confusion because of our lousy, useless education system in the college or in the schools itself. Okay, so as a programmer, when you refer stuff as memory, bear in mind, when you say something as a memory, it's the software aspect of your RAM or CPU cache. Okay, so when you refer in a code a memory or something, it is like you have a variable or something in a C code, or whether it is Python, PHP, Java, whatever it is. So when you allocate something, it is what is called as a memory. Okay, so when you talk about memory optimization or even something regarding memory allocation or something, it's the software aspect of using this actual system resources. So you should be very clear about it, and don't call RAM as memory. It is bullshit actually. So you should understand memory is something, a software aspect of something you can save or store. Okay, so that way I can show some example code. Let you be a Java developer or even Python, PHP, C, whatever it is. Let's take one sample code. So let's pick this TrueBench code itself, which I wrote. So if you go here, you have various variables here. You can see here there are some global variables which has this huge buffers I have allocated, and there are some local variables, whatever it is. So these things can be regarded as memory. Okay, so this is what is memories. And let it be a static variable, int a, b, c, whatever it is, that is memory. And even you have some buffer, you do with array, you do with malloc, it doesn't matter where it sits. Okay, please understand, if you're a system software developer, take out your crappy confusion about this data segment, code segment, all this bullshit. It doesn't matter where it exists. It doesn't matter it's a paged one or whether it is a OS, memory, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. So whenever there is a software aspect of storing some data, it is what is memories. And of course, even though you assign any variables like this, okay, when you run this in that execution sequence, this will go from the CPU, from the RAM, and it will go all the way into the CPU, and it will be there as a part of CPU L3 cache and then L2 cache, and then it may hop onto CPU registers and stuff like that. And once its work is over, it will go back again, and it will be saved into the RAM. And if your system has no resources, then it may hop between your swap space, or in Windows you call it as virtual memory, whatever it is. So this is what it happens. So all these things, you can use the word as memory. So when you think about a hardware aspect, always use the word RAM. This is why in my videos I be very clear that don't call just like that anything you save something not memory. You should use the word RAM. Okay, so end of the day, okay, the hardware is where all these things will exist. So if you're a software developer, don't be in a sort of dreamy land, and don't talk all this crappy stuff which you don't understand. So when you say memory, and when you think about optimization or something, think about for what you are doing some embedded level programming, then you need to think about some memory optimization, because you have less than some few kbs of RAM or few MBs of RAM or something. And if you are working on some desktop, you don't need to worry about RAM. Is very cheap. 8 GB RAM recently I took, it is around close to $100 or something. In Indian rupees also it is, if you buy it in US, maybe it is around $70-60 or something. In India it is around close to $100 equivalent of Indian rupees, so it is around 6k or something that I am talking about DDR4. So the RAM is very cheap. Why do you need to think about optimizing something? You need to optimize your code to save the CPU cycles, and there are many things. So don't use this words vaguely because you are teached that way in the college. I am a systems architect. I am saying you, if you say anything as a memory, okay, it is the software component, it is not the hardware component. And when you say specifically, when you are working on a code to optimize the memory because you have less RAM, then use the word RAM most of the times, not just something like a memory. So sometimes you may have DDR2, or sometimes it may have some type of RAM which is not faster. Then you need to do some level of optimization based on that type of a RAM. So you need to use the word RAM, not memory, all the time. Okay, so if you write a code like this particular variable can exist anywhere. Okay, based on your system, it can when it is running that particular API, it may be sitting in the CPU. So it is in the CPU cache. After some time, it may hop onto CPU register. So you can't use the word memory everywhere. So you need to be very precise that if there is an execution context, then it may be RAM, and if it is exactly running at that particular line or that particular API, it may hop onto into the CPU as a part of CPU cache, and at that right moment while executing that instructions, it may be in the CPU register. So use that common sense, be a developer. But I see one more issue is developer don't have any knowledge on computer hardware. They don't even self-assemble. Okay, I'm not saying about globally. Okay, this is an issue. We have a disease in our country which we have this Indians. The point is they do all these theoretical studies. They don't ever touch anything. Okay, they blame college have not taught or schools have not taught. It is not that. We need to do ourselves. Okay, so okay, you have your computer hardware done by some diploma guys or something. You being a bachelor's degree, what is the point of not knowing even something simple as assembling a computer? Okay, so put that thought in perspective. It doesn't matter you are a professional computer science, in bachelor's in computer science, you should know very well about all those aspects. So you should not have somebody who is like a done less than you and he is an expert in some hardware or something. So I see many software developers lack in our country. Let them have 5 years of experience or 3 years of experience or 10 years of experience. It doesn't matter. Okay, we do like doing donkey work, but we don't have the common sense of learning simple things, being a professional. Okay, that's what makes the things different. Okay, I don't see this issue much in abroad students. Their education type is different. They don't talk all grandma grandfather stories. Okay, they do on live stuff, and they do handle things which are day to day happening, and more practical oriented type of education system they have, versus we have all this storytelling, and in the exams you need to write some stories, in the college you need to write some stories, in the interview you need to tell some stories, and based on your stories they decide whether to give a job or not. And based on that, tomorrow you will sit on a company and you will tend to work on a live project. I don't see anywhere it is going to correspond. So get this confusion out of your mind. When you tell memory, it is the software aspect. When you tell anytime a memory which is mainly associated with the hardware aspect, just mention it is RAM. Okay, so don't tell memory and RAM or this thing. Don't get confused, and don't use the word memory excessively. Okay, be very very precise. Memory is some buffer or int abc or char, whatever you do in C, or if it is Python, you may have variables, or even let it be Java, you have variables. So when you run the code will be sitting in a code segment. Again, there is this memory aspect is there. So yeah, anything which is in that aspect, you should use the word memory. But whenever whenever you think about optimizing your code, sometimes based on the hardware, and I don't see an confusion among system admins in general. Okay, systems admins generally they use the word RAM because the system admins will work completely different than the software developers. What happens is the system admins have the live experience. I've been a system admin, and most of the times I have been also a developer, or now maybe an architect or whatever. So one thing I see an advantage with system admins is they have clear understanding of certain terms. Unfortunately, they are not programmers. They can't create new things, but they have this clear understanding. Since they deploy the hardware, they do upgrade of their servers, and they do maintenance of their hardware and stuff like that. So they are very clear when they talk about any memory aspect. They don't say that I'm upgrading memory all the times. They say very precise that I'm upgrading the CPU to get more cache, because cache, it matters, depends on the applications, not always. Okay, also it depends how far the cache is optimized. You may have so much of L3 cache. If the CPU firmware is not fine-tuned, and the CPU architecture is not well done to make use of that excessive cache, then again it is going to hurt the performance. So they may do hardware upgrade for various reasons, sometimes a processor, and most of the times a RAM, DIMM, cards. Okay, so the system admins use the right term, whereas this confusion exists in the software developer community. Okay, they can simply use the word memory. I seen even the managers or anybody in the top class doing the silly mistake. Okay, when you say about hardware aspect of upgrading system or something, if you tell memory next time, you imagine that if someone understands this video very well, that you imagine that particular guy is a fool actually. So don't simply don't simply just mix these terms. RAM is something, and the software aspect of any sort of storable stuff is memory. And when you define any variables, let it be any code, it may exist anywhere. It may be in CPU cache, or it may be in the it may be in the hard drive, also in the form of swap space. Okay, so that's what memory is. The logical addressing space and the entire software abstraction layer is the memory. And when you think about the real hardware aspect, because when you write a software, first you should understand any software developer. There is this disease is there in software developers. You are writing some code, it may differ in terms of performance, it may differ in terms of its limitations and many things based on the actual hardware. Okay, so take that into consideration. And these things, they don't define properly or discuss properly in the textbooks. Okay, in the textbooks they can't write one entire chapter of this video. Okay, so they may put in some one paragraph of description, and that is what your school teacher or some college lecturer or even a professor will read out, and then he may tell as if he knows everything, but he doesn't been into any live doing stuff in the industry. So that is where the limitation is. So understand, this is not something to be confused with. Okay, you should use the right term. Your code, finally it depends on the hardware, it runs on the hardware, hardware it dictates. Okay, no matter what type of code you do, thinking all these aspects. So finally, that is why when you define this, when you even use the terms, use precisely that this is a part, it's been optimized for L3 cache, it's been optimized for some type of low level CPU registers, or it is optimized for some type of generic physical memory or RAM. Than using the word physical memory, I better choose to use the word RAM. Okay, it is very clear that physical memory can be anything. Again, this is the confusion. Physical memory can be even CPU cache also, even that is a memory, and the CPU registers also, even that is memory. It's a physical memory. Anything you can store data is a memory. That's what. Why do you confuse these terms? Okay, so this is what. So I know that this is like a ranting video, but I felt this is a confusion, and you if someone is highly confused, later in future they think what they perceived is correct. And I seen even people who have some good enough of industry experience doing this stupid blunders. I seen many guys who are into top class MNCs, they do this stupid issues, they have this stupid confusion actually. So end of the day, memory is something else, the physical hardware is completely something else. Okay, don't confuse these terms. It's a difference between a term like mind versus brain. Okay, the something you see physically when you open the skull is brain. When you can't see anything inside, although you have opened and seen the brain, is your mind is. So there's a lot of difference when you use the word soul, mind and stuff like that versus something you call as a brain. Okay, although you are a software developer, when you do coding aspect, you may use the word memory, but the logical addressing and that overall abstraction is what we call as memory. Okay, when it is not abstracted, when it is something touchable, you can see, you can buy, you can see something physically, and of course your code is also depends on that physical aspect. So at that time, if you're dealing with a logical aspect, at the same time it has this physical constraints, and also it is interdependent on that physical aspect. Better used to use the actual terms, which is the hardware aspect. Is it L3 cache, or is it a physical memory like a RAM DIMM chip, DIMM card, or what is that? Is it a DDR3? It is a DDR4? What is that? What is your code? It is working on to what type of hardware? It is what it matters. Okay, don't confuse simply by saying memory and RAM and all this stuff with no kind of understanding between these.